New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And you absolutely know that's the truth. I am so glad you're here. Welcome. Welcome to Who Do You Think You Are? A podcast dedicated to helping you learn how to have the highest regard for yourself, how to live from a place of genuine self-respect and self-love, and how to make yourself a priority in your own life. Because when we have self-respect and self-love, we do make ourselves a priority. Meet me here each week for curated tips and strategies designed to help you drop your psychological mask, connect with your truest essence, and simply live life more easily. Why? Because we know that when we approach life in this way, we naturally have more room, more generosity, and more love for others. And when have we needed it more? Well, friends, I have to say that I'm coming to you a bit jet lagged, hence maybe a little tongue-tied this evening. But I will do my best to put myself on East Coast time. I am so excited. This is part 2 of a 2-part conversation with someone who is very close to my heart, a psychotherapist who has a gift for healing, a gift for being present with her clients, someone who means the world to me, my life partner, Dawn Freed. Dawn, hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Yeah. Are you as jet lagged as I am?
Most definitely.
Yeah. So listeners, we just got back from 2 weeks in Italy, and we are on Italian time, which means our punctuality is shot, and we have to nap in the middle of the day. You get the idea. So we're going to carry on and try to be as coherent as we can, right?
Yes, we will. We'll do our very, very best.
All right. So this is part 2 of a conversation, and we didn't really start out intending this to be 2 parts. We thought maybe we'd get together again, but after our last conversation, I heard from a number of listeners who had very interesting and what I thought were compelling questions. So I said, well, let's do a part 2, and let's see if we can take a deeper dive into these questions. What do you think?
I'm ready.
Okay. So would you believe the question that got asked the most, and I hear this from time to time, and I wonder if you do as well. What is it like living and working together? Working in the same profession, working in the same apartment now that we work from home, right? You're in one room, I'm in the other. And what is it like sharing this space, this workspace and life space together? Someone even asked, would you recommend it? Would you recommend it? So I know what I think, but I'm very interested to hear what you think, Dawn.
Okay. Well,
first of all, how long have we been doing this together?
Well, I'm not sure what time period are we referring to? The very start of our relationship as therapists, as
So let's say decades
decades?
of working in the same office suite, right?
Yes, right.
But then, of course, since COVID,
Working from home.
working from home, working together, living together, breathing together, eating together. So for people who might be interested in what that's like for us, maybe we can start there.
Okay. It's an interesting situation for sure. And anyone who asks me if I recommend it, I always say that there are some caveats to it working out well. So let me start there. The relationship between the two people, you and I, is one aspect of it. The space that you're in is another. And learning how to establish boundaries. I know that that's an maybe overused word in many respects, but it is very much about establishing boundaries of personal energy, personal space, and all the rest.
Sure, sure. One of the things that I really appreciate about us, to be honest, is we let one another know when we need a little more space,
Yes.
right? Depending on the day, if we have, depending on how busy we are and how intense our day is, we let each other know, hey, I don't feel very talkative right now
Right.
because I'm a bit talked out, right?
Yes.
And we've learned to kind of navigate that with one another. And
Operative word is learned. We learned as we went along.
it was a learning curve, and we learned by overstepping that boundary, right?
Yes.
For example, I might be, tell me if this at all rings a bell. I might be chatty. I don't say chatty Kathy, but yeah, and you might be in a headspace where you're still with your day or you're decompressing, and you say to me, well, now you just go like this, now you just, and
We have just, yes, hand signals, right?
hand signals, right? Like the Yankees or something, right? And that gives me a feeling of security because I've come to understand what your needs are, and I think you've come to understand mine in that way, right? So we ask each other for what we need.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
One of the things that surprises clients when they ask, and I tell them, is that we don't really talk about our cases, do we?
No.
Right? I think people have preconceived ideas of first, and we'll get into this, of what they think a therapist's life is like, both inner and outer life. And I think when they hear that, that my life partner is also a therapist and she's in the next room, I think they think we talk about work a lot. But what may surprise people is we really don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there are times when we might look for some exchange purposefully, intentionally to get some supervision, you might say. But that is intentional, and we will present it as such to one another, not just have casual conversation.
Right. Because when we talk about supervision, I think you would agree that any therapist worth her salt constantly, discusses her cases with another professional. And of course, this is all done confidentially. No one's identity is ever revealed. But we engage in peer supervision to this day, even though we've been doing this for 1, 2, 3, 4 decades. Right. And so we have become our own and we have our own mini peer supervision. But whenever we talk about a case, we literally make an appointment to do so, don't we?
Yes.
So Dawn, I might say on a Friday, listen, at some point over the weekend, maybe when we're having coffee, can we have 10 minutes together? I'm having a challenge with a client and I could use your input.
Right.
Right.
So that's a very specific kind of situation.
Yeah. And that brings to mind actually another question that a listener wrote in with, and I hear this all the time as well. And so I think there's overlap here, which is, how do you talk to people all day long about their challenges, their struggles, their traumas, and not take it on? Not take it on. Or do you take it on? You know, how many times have you heard, it must be so difficult or so depressing?
So depressing.
Right? Isn't that the word? So depressing to hear your clients, difficulties all day long. And I know what that brings up in me. What does it bring up in you, and how do you respond to that?
Well, I want to say at the outset that I don't want to in any way impart the message that I'm not affected or not touched by what any of my clients might go through. I am. But after many years of being a therapist, I have learned how to be connected and be present and caring without owning what my clients are going through. So I am affected. And sometimes I may be affected to a degree that I then have to do something for myself to manage what I'm feeling. And it begins with looking at what has been stirred up for me. So it's the self-awareness, this checking in, and then figuring out what is it I need to do right now to manage what I'm feeling about a client situation, so that I can remain present to my own life and present to all the other clients I have.
I think you used talk about the operative word, which is own. I think the challenge for every therapist is to kind of find that balance between being as present as possible to the client, while at the same time being present to ourselves, being in our own autonomy, if you will. So one of the things I learned from a mentor very early in my training was that we're not here to fix anybody. We're not here to fix anybody. We're not here to rescue anyone. So when I reflect upon that, that's very helpful to me because it helps me remember my place. I'm here as a witness. I'm here as someone who will accompany the client on his or their own journey. I'm not here to do anything to them. If anything, and I think this is what it boils down to for me, tell me how it is for you, I'm here to show them and to help them tap into their own strengths and their own resilience and their own capacity to live in their own skin with authenticity and genuineness. So that's a whole other energetic vibe, isn't it?
It is.
Anybody.
Right. It's not about that saving anyone, that's for sure. I do have to say for myself, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't get affected by the fact that people coming to me for guidance, for support, that sometimes there's a lot of sadness one has to hold, that I might have to, in a sense, hold as I'm
Yes.
listening and navigating, the terrain with a client. So, but I'm good with that, in terms of, I want my heart to be open and receptive to where someone is at, and allow that to guide me in helping them. So I am affected. That said, and I think I've learned this over the many decades, I've gotten better at it over the many decades. I don't necessarily then take it on and internalize the sadness for me to then carry around. I don't know if I'm being clear about what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think you're being clear, because I mean, I know what you mean. But it is hard to articulate, isn't it? Because we are very touched by our clients' experience. We're moved by what they go through. I know I can feel heavy at times when someone tells me their life, and and they bring me into their inner dialogue, and whether it's self-doubt or self-sabotage, or, oh gosh, I did it again. I did the same thing again. I'm so frustrated with myself. Or, as we touched on in the last episode, I feel hopeless. Clients tell us they feel hopeless.
Yes.
So I know that I feel very moved by that. And I too like that my heart is open. We're not there dispassionately or
Right.
robotically or, on a higher level. It's not about that at all,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
But I think there's a difference between feeling touched and moved versus feeling responsible
Mhm.
for someone's journey.
Yes, I completely agree with that. But also, as I'm listening to you, what came to my mind is the term that we're familiar with, compassion fatigue. And it doesn't mean you have to experience it, but it is something that, as someone in a helping profession, one needs to be aware of it and have practices that offset the accumulation
Right.
of the worries, the sadness, the weights of people's problems.
Mhm.
But there are things we can do and need to do in terms of balancing our own lives and our own selves, so that we are, a more grounded
Grounded. Right. Right.
being, as we continue to do the work. So,
I remember in graduate school, I don't know if I read this or if one of our professors, because we went to the same graduate school, Rutgers School of Social Work in New Jersey, and so I can't remember where I got this, but I think it was through the APA, the American Psychological Association. Now, you and I are not psychologists; we have a master's in social work, but it applies that the life expectancy of a psychologist is slightly shorter than it would otherwise be. That the I don't know if they use the word weight, but I'll use that now. The weight of this work now this was many years ago, and there have been advancements in
yes,
self-care, but I think it still applies. If one isn't careful, and if one gets into this field thinking you're going to rescue people,
yes,
then that's where um, there can be an absorption of negative energy from other people. And you and I have learned that that's not the way we want to work.
Mhm.
So to our listeners who were interested in, do we absorb our clients' troubles? I say the short answer is no, not absorb, but we are touched. We are
Yes.
affected, right?
Yeah.
Another question I hear is, and it'll come out in different ways. Sometimes, every once in a while, a client will say, well, I know you didn't think of me between sessions because, either that's not paid time or I know you kind of turn it off. So 2 questions on that. One, do you think being a therapist is something, or in your experience, that you turn on and off, or no? And do you think about some of your clients between sessions? So one at a time. Do you turn your therapy-ness on or off?
That's an interesting question. And I'm not sure I know how to answer that in that I mean, it's not a switch. There isn't a switch somewhere that I flip back and forth. So I guess the answer is no, but that doesn't mean that I'm always in therapist mode as I go through my life.
What do you mean by therapist mode? People might be interested in that.
I mean, like, okay, in any engagement I have with people, work-wise or personal-wise, that I'm not always in myself listening. I mean, I'm always listening, and I try to be a good listener always, but I'm not assessing. I'm not keeping notes in my head. I'm not
Links to what they say, how
right,
it connects with their child.
right. I'm not making those connections. I do have moments, I think, of being curious in my mind of like, again, no matter who that person is, I may have a curiosity about, gee, I wonder what that's about for them, or where that originated, or that kind of thing. So in that sense, back to the switch, no, it's not an on-off switch, but they're maybe turning, it's more like a dial, maybe, I don't know. Turning it down.
At the same time, we happen to be empaths. I would venture to say most healers are empaths, and we do listen with an ear.
I always say it's not my original term, the third ear.
The third ear.
Yes, I listen with the third ear.
Yeah.
And that's always, I think, in me. But again, where's that dial turned to,
Right. Because the work that we do is an extension of who we are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so we are who we are all the time, but we're not working all the time. So, I just mentioned we were on vacation, and you and I were not sitting together so my seatmate, we were talking what you do for a living, whatever. And I don't always say what I do, but I happen to say I'm a psychotherapist. And he said, "Oh, I know you're analyzing me. I know you're analyzing me." Nothing is further from the truth, right? Because that's work.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Right. And if I'm not working,
I'm not working.
So, yeah. And then the flip side of that, I remember, this hasn't happened in a while, but there was a long stretch of time where if I told someone I was just meeting that I was a psychotherapist, kind of like you meet someone who's a doctor and you go, "Oh, what do you think this pain is?" I would say, "Oh, I'm a psychotherapist." And the person might launch into, and I'm not working in that moment, and they might launch into, "Yeah, I have this problem with my, my girlfriend, or I have this problem with my kid." So there's, again, a sort of an assumption that I'm always on that mode, always working in a sense.
Right. And what do you do in a moment like that?
Thankfully, it hasn't happened for a while, but Depending on the situation and the setting, sometimes I say, "Hey, I'm
Off duty.
I'm off duty." Yes, I'm off duty, or we all have our struggles and our issues, and I'm off duty, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I ended up saying to my seatmate on the flight, because a 10-hour flight, that could have
Yeah.
been intense. Listen, let's take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, let's go to the second part of that question. Do we think about our clients between sessions? All right. So
Yes.
listening to Who Do You Think You Are? I am with psychotherapist extraordinaire, Dawn Freed, and my life partner. I know you hate when I say that, Dawn. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
New Thought Media Network is proud to present New Thought's Roots and Branches with Reverend Dr. Ruth Miller. Join us every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. Tune in live or watch anytime on our YouTube channel. Discover the rich history of New Thought and its impact on modern spirituality. Join Reverend Dr. Ruth Miller as she shares insights, stories, and teachings that inspire and uplift. Experience deep insights and transformative teachings that connect you to the roots of New Thought. Visit our YouTube channel to catch up on past episodes and join us live every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Connect with us and be part of the journey.
Welcome to the Convention of the Americas 2025, Rising Together. Join us for a truly bilingual retreat experience on the shores of the beautiful Lake Chapala, Mexico. July 22nd through July 26th, 2025, at the Hotel Villa Monte Carlo in Jalisco, Mexico. Featuring Reverend Jeffrey Ryan, Dr. Jose de Lira Sosa, Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis, Reverend Dr. John Waterhouse, and Reverend Dr. David Bruner. Registration is now open, and payment plans are available. Simply visit www.conventionoftheamericas.com. Come be part of a transformative gathering with powerful presentations, workshops, networking time, and just good old relaxing and connecting. Plus, you can learn more about the science of mind and how to live this powerful philosophy in your life. Transform your life at Convention of the Americas 2025, Rising Together.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And welcome back. I'm your host, Catherine Duca. And if you're just joining us, we are in a conversation. And when I say we, I mean someone who happens to be my life partner, someone I live and work with, Dawn Freed. We are talking about pulling back the curtain, if you will, on being a psychotherapist. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. And we are answering some of the questions that our listeners sent in after they heard part 1. So we've been talking about how do we take care of ourselves when we listen to a lot of trauma and a lot of struggle all day long. So Dawn just brought us through that. And now we're going to get into a question that I get asked often, which is, do you think about me between sessions? a client will say. They'll ask it that way, or they'll say, I know you never think about me except when I'm on the clock. And I think that's an interesting question.
Mhm.
How do you tend to respond to that? First of all, do you think about your client? I know the answer to this because I live
Of
with
course
you.
I do.
Of course.
Of course I think about my clients. And the reasons I think about them, the times I think, it varies, right? I might think about them in a reflective way about what maybe they're going through at that particular time, or if they have sometimes it's an important event or appointment in their life, I may think of them. And then other times I think of them because something just reminds me of them. Something comes up and I'm like, yeah, Mary, I think Mary would relate to that, or that just just brings someone to mind in those ways. So there's a variety of ways in which I definitely do think of my clients.
Right. Same here. Same here. We were just away again, as I said, and I knew that one of my clients was due to give birth while we were away. And of course, you never know the exact time, right? But I found myself thinking about her and, hoping and holding the intention that everything would go smoothly.
Sure.
And then because we had terrible internet service, I came home to a very beautiful text message and a photograph of her and her new son. So yeah, we do think about clients, and it's a pleasure to do so, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you ever pray for your clients?
I do. I mean, I'm not a formal prayer kind of person, but in my spiritual practice, I certainly do think of people, specific people, and what I'm hoping they get some support or relief or strength.
Or,
What were you saying?
freedom, emotional
Yes.
freedom has them
Yes.
gripped.
Right.
Tell our listeners about our buffet, what we have on our buffet.
Oh, yes.
In our dining room.
In
Right?
our dining room, yes. We have a small a bowl made of pottery, and in it there's some flowers that have dried naturally along the way in our lives, and
That happened to have special meaning, right? Maybe
yes.
on a retreat or something, and we picked up those flowers. So
Right.
so they're dried in this beautiful
In
pot.
this beautiful bowl, and there's a candle. Now I have to say it's not
Confess.
it's a battery operated candle, but it's a candle nonetheless.
Right.
And
it's battery operated because we live in an apartment, and
yes,
real flame is
we're
discouraged.
not allowed, right?
We're not
Right. But yeah, and it's when we know someone is going through something, or celebrating something, or awaiting something like the birth of a child. I remember during COVID, if we, learned or heard of someone going through a medical crisis, we would light the candle. And because it was electric, battery operated, we could keep it on indefinitely, and we would. And it was a way to be prayerful and intentional and mindful, and just send extra energy and thought to that person or people. Sometimes it was for more than one person at one time.
Yeah. Being raised a Catholic, I have lit many a candle and prayed in a way in which I was taught to pray as a child, which was a prayer of supplication. I think it's called, please, please, please.
Yes.
Please, God, let me pass the test. Please, God, let my team win. Please, God. Now, when I turn on the candle, it's not please, please, please. It's holding the intention for the best possible outcome.
Yes.
And when I say best possible outcome, and I think you'll agree with this, we don't always know what that is, do we?
Right. Many times we really don't know for a particular person what that might be.
Right. So, like you, I have had the candle on for the I don't know, week-long wait for the biopsy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And of course, right off the bat, you wish that someone's biopsy comes back negative, right? So, yes, I hold the intention for that, but at the same time, I hold the intention for, you know what? I don't know why cancer has come to this person's life. I don't know what this person can learn from it, or what perhaps hidden gifts there are in this diagnosis. So I sort of leave that part open-ended. I leave that part to the universe or to the God of my belief.
Right.
So there is yes, of course I hold the intention for good news, but then at the same time, I hold the intention for that this experience in the person's life is for their greatest good. Now that can sound like a contradiction, but
Well, yeah, I guess it could, but we're talking whether it's clarity, insight, inspiration. I mean, anything can come, and we don't know what it is for that person. But I agree with you. I'm not, a lot of times people say, about something bad that happened, everything happens for a reason. And I really don't know if I full-heartedly believe that, but I do believe that there is meaning in everything that happens. And in that meaning, we can find gifts, lessons, strength, clarity, inspiration, purpose. So that's sort of what leads me. Beyond, of course, holding the intention for a good outcome of a biopsy or whatever the case may be, it is that person gets what they need to
yeah,
come out of the experience in the way that's best for them.
yes, yes. And I think I came to know that experientially with my own diagnosis of breast cancer a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought would have been the worst thing to ever happen to me.
Mm.
But I found that it actually, in my case, it wasn't. And it opened me up to things that I hadn't let touch me.
Yes.
Right? I realized in a deeper way your love for me
Mm-hmm.
and the love of others that I knew intellectually, but I have to say, in all honesty, it never quite touched my heart
Mm-hmm.
when I had my diagnosis through that vulnerability. So, I never have the thought, I wish that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is in my particular case, in my case,
Right.
someone else's case, but I think it just brings to bear the importance of holding space for the possibility that what may appear as something negative or catastrophic may be, but may not be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Viktor Frankl, I think, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, who said, the way we get meaning in life is looking for the meaning
Mm-hmm.
in life. That it's less about having an answer sometimes, but more living in the question or
Mhm.
pondering something, just being in that space, willing and curious,
Yes. And as open as one can be.
as open as one can be, can be a portal
Yeah,
in one's
very
life,
much so.
right? Yeah. So
So yes, we do think of our clients.
that's the long and the short of it.
That's the
Right. Right.
right.
So for anyone who has seen the movie, What About Bob, with Bill Murray and who was the psychiatrist? Richard Dreyfuss.
Yes. Mhm.
Right. What About Bob? It's a very hysterical movie. And right, it's about the psychiatrist and the patient who followed the psychiatrist on vacation.
Right.
And it really makes light of this idea that we all want to be thought of.
Yes.
We all want, I know when I was in therapy, I hoped that my therapist thought of me in between,
Mhm. Yes.
and I think she did, and that made me feel good. That made me feel
Mhm.
more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Any surprises? Like anything that you think someone would be surprised at what we do or we don't do? As I ask that, something that comes to mind is, have you ever heard this? Oh, you must have it all together. How many times have we heard that? You must have it all together.
You've worked it all through. You are on the other, yeah. The assumption that there is an end point to the work that one can do on oneself and needs to do, perhaps, and that somehow we've gotten there, and now we're just kind of resting on our laurels about it.
Right. That's not the case.
No.
No. So how long would you guess we'll be working on ourselves?
I would say to the very end, in a sense. I mean, does that mean I'll be going to a therapist or a mentor or a coach, or at the very end, I'll just be reflecting inside where I am at, and, what I've done in my life? Yes, I think to the very end, I will be looking inward.
Because we never stop growing. And there is always a growth edge, right? And
Yeah.
life throws curveballs,
Oh, yes.
right? And I think probably this is what I think anyway. The deepest goal of psychotherapy is self-acceptance. Self-acceptance and integrating the disparate parts of ourselves, right? Integrating the things about ourselves that we're not crazy about, the things about ourselves that we might even loathe, but they're aspects of ourselves and they come from somewhere. So to accept the existence of these parts, I think, is the crux of psychotherapy. So a growth edge, I know, after all the work I've done and we've done, separately and together in our relationship, when a curveball comes, I'm not shocked by it anymore. I expect there to be curveballs,
Very
right?
much. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, this, I think every curveball comes with its own opportunity to exceed our limit and go past
Most definitely.
and I think as long as we're alive. And probably if I know when my end is coming, I'm sure that will be perhaps the deepest work of all, to meet my end with, I hope,
Grace.
grace and self-awareness and if I know the end is coming, right? And as I hear myself say that, I think of living each day. We tend to wait, right? We tend to put life off. I'll start living when I get this, or I do that, or I'll be happy when. And so we kind of kick the goalpost gets further and further out.
Yes.
But I think today is when we have to live. Our now is now in the present moment.
Yes. And I do think that part of that is that as I work on myself, whether it's working with a therapist, a mentor, or doing work on myself within myself, that is, for me, about part of living in the now. Part of being fully present is to always be open to growing and evolving. For me, I think that's part of it,
Mm.
you know.
And when I hear you say that, and this may be a little bit of backtracking in the sequence of what we're talking about, but have you had moments when you struggle to be there for a client? You know, because you just said, being present, and I don't want to make this sound like we never have moments when maybe it's a little harder to be present on
Absolutely.
a given day, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe we're preoccupied with something in our own lives, or preoccupied with something about a family member, or something is weighing heavily. And, um, if you've encountered that, and I know you have,
Certainly.
what did you do? How did you handle that?
Well, there are different ways in which I've handled it. Sometimes it's, again, just being aware, checking in with myself, and realizing what is making it difficult for me to be more present. And in that moment, I might just acknowledge it and put it aside, knowing I need to go back to it when I have that opportunity. So it might be that, or it might be in an appropriate way, sharing with the client, you know what, I might not be as present as I'd like to be
Mm,
because something's going on for me. And for me, over the many years, it's been the death of someone important in my life. It's been an illness that I've been dealing with. So I do share that if I certainly if I feel like it's in a given moment making it difficult to be
mm.
as present as I would want to be. And
So you've been open
mhm,
whenever this has occurred. If you couldn't get yourself there, being as present as you want to be, and
yes,
you do that by kind of taking what you're feeling, acknowledging that you're carrying something, and you kind of put that in a compartment until you
yeah,
can get to it.
right.
But that doesn't quite work. You're saying that you've shared with a client, hey, I'm not quite here today.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have too, on a couple of occasions in my career. I
Hmm.
just couldn't get there. I was, I remember how I felt sharing that. I first of all, I felt very genuine and truthful.
Yes.
And I found that the feeling I had was that I was honoring the therapeutic relationship by being that honest, and by saying, I don't want to just go through this hour together, and I don't want to white knuckle, and I don't want to put a facade up. So the truth is, today may not be the best day for me to be with you. Let's reschedule when I think I can be more present.
Hmm.
I think that actually helped the relationship, the couple of times that's occurred.
And I think it also, there's a modeling there. I think that we can also, highlight that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not always be on your game. It's okay. And yes, is there a time and a place to share it or not share it? Of course. But it's okay to be human.
That's it.
That's what I think it comes down to.
That's it. That's it exactly. Um, Namaste. I have in my notes here at the top, namaste, which means what?
Well, the highest in me greets or honors the highest in you.
Right.
That's one variation.
Right. And so, I have that in my notes because I thought that would be a nice way to kind of wrap this up as what our shared philosophy is.
Mhm.
You know, the highest and best in me acknowledges the highest and best in you. The divine in me acknowledges the divine
Mhm.
in you. And I think that underlies our approach to our work and to our clients,
Mhm. Yes.
right? And that just warms me as I think about it.
Mhm. It is a beautiful, beautiful thought.
So, Dawn, if anyone is touched by your softness and your gentleness and your approach to
Mhm.
healing, how can they get a hold of you?
They can email me
At
at it's DCFRIED, DC Freed at iCloud.com. My website is being revamped,
is
so
it still under construction?
it's still under construction.
Okay.
It's a process.
It is a process. All right. All right. And for anyone who'd like to get a hold of me, anytime, Catherine at catherineduca.com. I'd love to hear from any and all listeners on today's episode and in fact, any episode. Questions, comments, other points of view are always welcomed and entertained here on Who Do You Think You Are? So, Dawn, this has been great.
This
Thank
has
you.
been interesting and fun, and I'm filled with many things to think about further.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Things I haven't reflected on. And
Yes. So
putting,
thank you for
yeah,
the opportunity.
great, great. Who's making dinner tonight? You or me?
Take out.
Okay. That's a deal. That's a
Okay.
deal. All right, Dawn. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again.
Love you from my heart.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. So, listeners, I will be back live next week with what I hope will be a thought-provoking and compelling episode. In the meantime, I'd like to give a shout out to the producer here at New Thought Media Network, Reverend Michael Mangus. Reverend Michael, thank you so much for everything you do behind the scenes to get this show on the road. So, dear listeners, take care, be well. Remember that who you think you are, your facades, your defense mechanisms, your very polished exteriors, is really just a fraction of who you truly are. Who you truly are is, I promise you, infinitely more magnificent. Infinitely more magnificent. So I wish you all a namaste. The highest and best in me acknowledges the highest and best and most divine in you. Until next time, you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? Take care and be well. Good night.